The old Victorian house at the end of Maple Street had been in the Thompson family for generations. Its grand architecture and expansive rooms had always been a source of pride. However, for Amanda, a college student home for the summer, it was less a symbol of familial pride, and more a source of endless creaks and shadows that played tricks on her mind. Her parents had left for a weekend getaway, leaving her alone in the house for the first time in years. Friday evening began innocuously enough. Amanda spent her time binge-watching a new series on Netflix, eating popcorn, and texting her friends. The night settled in, and the familiar, comforting hum of life in the house faded into an eerie silence. Amanda didn't mind at first. She had grown up in this house after all, but as the hours passed, the silence began to feel oppressive. She was just starting to drift off when she heard a faint sound. It was so soft she almost missed it. A distant, muffled thump. She opened her eyes, heart pounding. Listening intently, she heard it again, slightly louder this time. Amanda sat up, straining to identify the noise. It seemed to be coming from downstairs. She reached for her phone, but then hesitated. Grabbing a flashlight from her nightstand, she decided to investigate. As she crept down the stairs, the house seemed to grow colder. The old wood groaned under her feet, and she winced at each creak, fearing it would alert whoever, or whatever, was making the noise. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she paused, holding her breath. The house was still. She shook her head, laughing nervously at herself for being so jumpy. Just as she turned to go back upstairs, the noise came again, closer now from the direction of the basement door. Relieved, she turned to go back upstairs when the light caught something, an old, ornate mirror leaning against the far wall. It hadn't been there before. Amanda frowned, stepping closer. The mirror was covered in a thick layer of dust, but through the grime, she could see her reflection. She reached out to wipe it clean, but as her hand made contact with the glass, a chill ran down her spine. The reflection staring back at her was not her own. The face in the mirror was twisted in agony, eyes wide and mouth open in a silent scream. Amanda stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. The basement was plunged into darkness. She scrambled to pick it up, her heart racing. When she finally managed to get the light back on, the mirror was gone. She needed help. She grabbed her phone and dialed her parents' number. It rang and rang, but there was no answer. She tried again. Still nothing. Panic began to set in. She needed someone, anyone. She dialed 911. The operator answered immediately. 911, what's your emergency? I'm alone in my house and I think someone is here, Amanda said, her voice shaking. I keep hearing noises and things are moving. What's your address, ma'am? Amanda gave her address, her eyes darting around the room. Please hurry, she pleaded. Stay on the line with me, the operator said. Officers are on their way. Amanda clung to the phone, listening to the operator's calm voice as she waited for the police to arrive. Minutes felt like hours. She kept her eyes on the living room entrance, waiting for any sign of movement. Suddenly, the line went dead. She heard a noise from the hallway, a slow, deliberate creak. She turned, flashlight in hand, and saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was a man, tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. Amanda's blood ran cold. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The man took a step forward and she finally found her voice. She turned and ran, sprinting for the front door. She fumbled with the lock, her hands shaking, but managed to get it open. She burst outside, breathing in the cool night air, and ran to the street. She didn't stop running until she saw the flashing lights of a police car. She flagged them down, tears streaming down her face. The officers took her inside the car and listened as she recounted what had happened. They searched the house from top to bottom but found no sign of the man. The only evidence that anything was amiss was the fallen pot in the kitchen. The officers assured Amanda that they would keep an eye on the house and suggested she stay with a friend or relative for the night. Amanda didn't need to be told twice. She called her best friend Sarah, who lived a few blocks away. Sarah came to pick her up, and Amanda spent the rest of the night at her house, too scared to sleep. There was a piece of paper sticking out from under her pillow. She pulled it out and unfolded it, her heart racing. The note was written in a scrawled, messy hand. It read, "I'm always watching." Amanda's scream brought Sarah running. She took one look at the note and grabbed Amanda's hand, pulling her out of the room. "We're leaving," Sarah said firmly, "now." Amanda moved in with Sarah for the rest of the summer, and when her parents returned, they decided it was time to sell the old Victorian house. Amanda never found out who the man was or how he had gotten into the house, but she knew one thing for sure: she would never be home alone again. The house on Maple Street held too many dark memories, and Amanda was determined to leave them behind. Years later, when Amanda drove past the old house, she couldn't help but shiver. The new owners had renovated it, making it look bright and welcoming. But Amanda knew that some houses held on to their secrets, and she couldn't help but wonder if the new family would discover the darkness that lurked within its walls. As she drove away, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a figure standing in the window. It was the man, watching her with that same twisted smile. Amanda's blood ran cold, and she sped up, desperate to leave the past behind. But she knew deep down that some things could never be forgotten. The man in the house would always be watching. One night, Amanda was studying in her dorm room when her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it. "Remember me?" She stared at the screen, her blood turning to ice. It had to be a prank. She deleted the message and tried to focus on her work, but the words echoed in her mind. Unable to concentrate, she decided to take a walk to clear her head. As she strolled through the campus, the cool night air helped to calm her nerves. She was passing by a dark, quiet part of the grounds when she felt it, a presence. She stopped and turned, but there was no one there, just shadows and the rustling of leaves. Amanda shook her head, berating herself for being paranoid. She quickened her pace, eager to get back to the safety of her dorm. Just as she reached her building, her phone buzzed again. She hesitated before looking at the screen, still watching. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked around, the shadows seeming to close in on her. She ran inside and locked the door behind her, her hands trembling. She called Sarah, needing to hear a familiar voice. "Hey Amanda, what's up?" Sarah's cheerful voice was a balm to her frazzled nerves. "Sarah, I got a message." "From him," Amanda whispered, her voice shaking. "What? Are you sure? Maybe it's just a prank." Amanda bit her lip, fighting back tears. "I don't know. It feels real." "Listen, why don't you come over? You can stay with me tonight." "Grateful," Amanda agreed. She quickly packed a bag and headed to Sarah's apartment. The ride over was nerve-wracking, every shadow seeming to hide a lurking figure. When she finally arrived, Sarah greeted her with a hug. "You're safe here," Sarah reassured her. "We'll figure this out." That night, Amanda and Sarah stayed up late, talking and trying to make sense of the messages. They decided to contact the police the next day. Exhausted, Amanda finally fell asleep, feeling a bit safer with her friend nearby. Around 3 a.m., Amanda awoke to a cold breeze. She opened her eyes and saw the window was open. She was sure it had been closed. Her heart pounded as she got up to shut it, glancing around the room. Everything seemed normal, but the uneasy feeling remained. As she climbed back into bed, her phone buzzed again. She hesitated, then picked it up. The message sent a chill down her spine. Right outside. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. She woke Sarah, showing her the message. They both stared at the window, dread pooling in their stomachs. Gathering their courage, they crept to the window and peeked outside. The street was empty. No one was there. Sarah locked the window and pulled the curtains shut. "We need to go to the police first thing in the morning," she said firmly. Amanda nodded, but deep down she knew that the man, whatever he was, would always be watching, and there was no escaping his gaze.